ultimately, like, especially when you take a bunch of people that are goal oriented, right, and you set these objectives for yourself, and mission takes priority, right, and once mission takes priority, everything else falls away, and we, as I think as humans, are very simply wired to kind of forego anything in a survival situation, right? And yet at the same time, we don't know how to survive when we leave the military and tap back into ourselves. Because, yes. I mean, ultimately, it's like that takes a level of, pride checking that none of us ever wants to deal with. It's like you never want to be like, oh, yeah, no, that I was like a hard, angry, self-centered person as I left the Marine Corps. It's really, right now, it's hard for me to say that. But I recognize that there was like a change that had happened. And as I've gotten out and have made my journey and met Brad and started playing music, dude, those layers are just like peeling away at the rapid.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Zero Bunker. My name's CJ, this is G, and today we've got some special guests on. Actually, this is the second time for these guys to be on the Bunker. We'll make sure and link to the first episode where we had them on, but some incredible guys, Jay Bradford and Tyson. What's going on?
What's up, guys?
What's happening, man? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. It's Saturday, and we just had a shit show trying to get you guys recorded on Skype. How long were we doing this, guys?
Was just under an hour.
Wow, yeah. Are you serious?
Has it been? I mean, my 3-mile run was better,
But it allowed Tyson and I to get on the same page about our answers. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so we had some audio. So for everybody that's listening, obviously we're not too much like tech savvy, but we made it work. This is like being held together with fucking glue and passion. So
I'm embarrassed to say this, but my MOS was calm.
Dude, what is up with you calm guys? We had John and you guys, man. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, are they like deprogramming you guys now? Is that what it is?
I don't know. They just had me like cleaning radios, man. I don't know what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah, well. In any case, we're online, man. Jay, Tyson, thank you so much for being back on this. We had a blast last episode. Everybody truly fucking enjoyed it, man. So, again, thank you for taking the time to be here, guys.
Yeah, again, thanks for having us. And we're hoping this time we can take the energy level down a little bit and just be lame. I don't think that's gonna happen, man.
No, we're trying to get subscribers, so we need some.
And then Tyson and I are gonna play a game called Stump the Interviewer and see if we can just make you speechless.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, like one of our last podcasts, we had a Vietnam vet and Mac Visag say that he got prostitutes when he first got to country. So, I mean, we've heard some shit,
Yeah, that's fair.
Absolutely.
I haven't listened to that episode yet, but it's on my list. Was that a pretty cool experience?
Yeah, John Stryker. Dude, tell him what was the main quote from that? It was like almost like 2 hours we were on the call with him, but like he said something, and I swear to you, if you watch the video, you see G's reaction.
Yeah,
it is hilarious.
So he's literally talking about his entire, kind of an overview of his entire career. I mean, how he went to, win Green Berets and got in country, got assigned to these special projects, which became Mac Visag. And so I'm like, we're not even saying a fucking word. Like, he's just saying his stuff, and I'm just trying to picture what he's, as he's talking, right? And then at one point, he's talking about this hairy-ass mission. They're deep behind enemy lines. They're like literally, they have hundreds, they have like thousands of fucking NVA just, going down on them. They get up on top of the hill waiting for the LZ, for the extract, and this is exactly what he said. he said that we were killing so many of them that they were stacking up their bodies just to like get a better angle at shooting at us, right? And as he was saying that, like I just had this glow, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like he said, "Stacked bodies, like for real." And it blew my fucking mind, dude. And he's talking about it like it's just no big deal. And I'm thinking, like, dude, I have a hard time just getting up in the morning, and this motherfucker is like talking about racking up communists and shit, man. I was like, dude. But yeah.
That's wild.
Guys, I'm not kidding you. Like most people's reaction to that was probably like shock. And the most blissful face I've ever seen G have. It was,
yeah, man.
It was beautiful, really.
So let me ask you guys real quick, man. Just wanted to kind of jump into this. So I know you guys had the album that was getting ready to work on. How is that coming along, guys?
All right, so doing a lot of writing and still just kind of kicking things around. So we get together about every month, sometimes every 3 weeks, and play through all the stuff. So I'll record some guitar tracks and I'll kick it around to the other guys to listen to. And if it passes the test and everybody digs it, then we'll kind of take it to the next level. And then when we get together and play together, it's like orchestrating everybody, like try this on bass, drums need to be more like this, and we kind of work it out and then record that. And, from that recording, we listen back and just see any changes that we need to make and how things are flowing with the song. And so we're at about eight songs complete of 13.
Wow.
And we'll get together 4 days in July and kind of put the finishing touches on the remainder songs, and then start kind of tightening everything up and just knowing exactly what we're going to record for real. So
wow.
In terms of that, we've got the producer that's involved, Josh Goodwin. Got to give him a shout out.
Yeah,
amazing human and former Marine veteran. So
nice.
Anyway, he's involved with the project. He's got a baby that's due August 8th, which is the exact same time that we were hoping to kind of get into the real studio and lay this down. So we're probably going to end up recording in September so that this releases in October.
Wow.
But that's kind of our timeline.
Is there any particular song or anything that really is standing out to you guys already that you think is going to be a knockout, or is it hard to predict the weather with that kind of stuff?
I mean, again, we're not writing top 40 hits, but I think there are songs that everybody can relate to.
Sure.
It's bringing, like, I think what's happening with me is I'm tapping into, some deep, nasty, dark shit that's been inside of me for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know, I'm tapping into some of that emotion, and I think you can hear it in the music. I don't think that there's any doubt that when you hear it, you'll know exactly what it's going to be.
Do you find it therapeutic? I mean, obviously, I feel like maybe that's a silly question, but I mean, it's. I think last time when you were on, we had talked about perspective and different things, and people are very interested to hear somebody that's gone through things like what you have and your mindset. I'm curious, talking about tapping into dark stuff. It's like, is this has been like a good therapy? Do you feel like that's? I mean, it's bringing stuff out of you. Is that a good thing?
Yeah. So, I'll say this. I'll share this. This story, which to me was an amazing time. I was down in Tampa a couple of weeks ago and ran into two of my former teammates, and we went out to dinner, and the two guys that I was out with were both Mogadishu veterans from Delta. Mm-hmm. And I was there as a ranger, but didn't interact with these guys, didn't know them then. But one of them was my troop sergeant major, and he was a team leader in my troop before he was a leader in my troop. And anyway, there had been some bad blood between these guys at some point, and I didn't know that necessarily. But I got these guys together at a dinner in Tampa, and neither one of them knew that the other was going to be there. Mm-hmm. And one of them, without using names, one of them has gone through, and I think is going to be on the show soon.
Yes. Oh yeah.
One of them's dealt with a lot of PTSD, and has just recently, in the last year or so, gotten himself really healthy. And what it allowed him to do was make amends to the other guy. And the emotion at that table, and just the meaningfulness of seeing these guys kind of mend the fence based on them both being healthy and in a good place now, it was absolutely amazing. And
awesome.
it resonated with me so deeply that I told Tyson, I was on the plane and I was literally just trying to fight back tears on the plane, thinking back on the night before. And I go, man, I'm going to take this feeling and I'm just going to put it into something and I'm going to send it to you.
Wow.
And I did. And to me, hands down, it's my favorite song that I've written so far. And
Wow.
again, I think you'll be able to hear it when it's complete. I think that emotion will translate.
You know what's incredible, G, is I just realized. So what's amazing to me is how, people find therapy and they find kind of emotional support and things like that through different outlets, and we know that because there are certain people that read G's stories, and that's really where going and looking at the history stuff you post on iGrow.
Right.
And then there's a whole nother group of people that enjoy YouTube, and they enjoy some of the podcast stuff that we do, and but music has always been a huge outlet for so many people. And so it's cool to me to think, and I don't know why I didn't put this together, the original conversation, but it's like, it's twofold. There's one where in a way you're letting all this out and you're kind of like self-medicating, but you're also like providing this emotional support to other people that are going to really connect with this. That's just awesome.
Yeah,
well, I think that the bigger story is really saying, if I can be healthy now and I can be dealing with things in a positive and creative and healthy way, anybody can. It's just a matter of finding what's that outlet for you. So for me, it was music. That was an easy choice. But for somebody else, it might be watercolors or whatever, building a car.
Sure.
It could be anything. But find what that thing is and tap into that rather than hit the pills or hit the junk or hit the booze or,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
take it from me. You won't find it in pussy. I looked. It's not there. It's not.
You know what's interesting, man, and this is just kind of like to let everybody know that's listening. I mean, all this advice is coming from guys that, and when I'm talking about guys, I'm talking like Jay and Tyson that have been there and have done it and have been through extraordinary circumstances, tip of the spear, all that good stuff, and they're sharing this with us, kind of bringing that human emotion out. You know what I mean? And I think it's super important. And one thing that I wanted to highlight, and this is for Tyson, man, and I wanted to honestly thank you for this. If there was one thing that it really stood out to me, the last episode was that example that when you were talking about, when you're, coaching and you're talking to like a teenager or somebody that's young and how they have a certain problem, which could be like, so, like that's like the end of the world for them compared to maybe somebody like you who's done more, and you're thinking like, who am I to judge that person's, misery, I guess you can say. To be honest, like it really resonated me a lot. Like, if I had to take anything out of that episode, which there were a lot of great points, but that one really stuck out to me. In fact, I even try to apply it myself where, I would encounter people or even with, on a personal level with my wife or whatever, like, she would be complaining or, being upset about something. And at first I'd be like, man, what the fuck are you complaining about? But then I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, well, let me put myself in her shoes. Maybe that's the worst thing that's happening to her. You know what I mean? And maybe I need to be more supportive on that. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, like I wanted to really say thank you for sharing that. And I think it's just super important, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. And I think it's like a daily battle for everybody. I think it's something that, at some point maybe it becomes more automatic, but just kind of look at the way the way we are inside of this country right now, and it's like no one wants to listen to anybody about anything. I say no one. I mean, I think a lot of the larger arguments that we see and hear about, the news and social media are very sort of microcosmic. But like, if you just stop and listen and allow yourself to connect to someone, like at the very most basic human level, like that has nothing to do with me, but like you're a person who's talking about something and I'm going to listen to what you have to say and like really process it. you can really push, like, take things to a new level, yeah. So I mean, that's cool. I don't know, like, there's nothing else to be said about it. But I'm glad to know that that was a takeaway, because early on when Brad and I were talking about this whole project, and one of the earlier podcasts we did, where we had shared some personal stories and we talked about loss and some other things. I mean, I had some folks here in Raleigh who reached out and said, hey, there's a piece of this podcast that I heard because I saw it on Instagram, and I just lost a family member, and it really helped me. And, like, I mean, that's what it's about. And to really kind of connect this back to to music being the thing. I mean, look, Brad and Jason and Brandon and I, like, we just want to create something, right? We've got this energy, we've got this this wealth of experience, and all these things that sort of fester inside of us, and we got to let it out somehow. And music, for all of us, just happens to be the way we want to do it. But like Brad said, you can, I mean, just create something. If you take that, what seems like negative energy, right, that sort of pit feeling, and acknowledge that it's taking up space inside of you, and just put it somewhere else, and take that energy and use it to, get super fit, or coach football, or write music, or write a book, And I love it when people, knock all the GWAT books that are coming out, and it was like, oh, great, another book. But you know what? Like, fuck it. If the guy needs to write a book, let him write the book. Like, if that's his outlet, then let it be his outlet. You don't have to like it, but don't tamper with that. So anyway, without like ranting too much, I appreciate that, and it's validating to me, and I think I probably speak for Brad too when I say it, because it's, we get together and practice, and that's like the coolest thing I do. When we show up and we play for a day and a half, and I go home, driving 3.5 hours, and I'm smoked, man, because Brad's writing this great stuff, and we're all putting our piece to it, and we all feel the same vibe. And so anyway, I went like 12 degrees away from the original comment there, but
no, it's good, man. Gee, I was thinking when you were saying that, you were saying like you've been applying it in your own life, and first of all, it is incredible. But I was like, man, this motherfucker's been applying it on me. You were using your wife as an example. I was
really?
Like, oh yeah. Like when I get all pissy, man, you're like, okay, shit is.
I'll make an exception for you, bro. But
dude, I think what's awesome is, like, I love the fact that in our conversation originally, and I think this is where we got most of our comments. I'm so glad that G brought that up, because I felt like that's what stood out more than anything, was the fact that we had these individuals, again, that people look up to and admire, that are talking about like this deeper human emotion, and not, it's not just war stories. This is like, we're talking about kids and my neighbor's dog dying, or whatever it may be. And human emotion is so subjective; it can't be quantified. I mean, like, how do you graph that? And expression can be through like artistic things like music and writing and things like you're saying, and people connect to that. It's not like you can even really explain it. It's just like it's like the heart speaking in a way.
Yeah.
Well, I think there are two things, right? So you don't want to just displace something and say, let me take all of this negative and put it somewhere else, because then it's not resolving the issue. So, one of the things that I think with, at least what I'm feeling with music, is that I'm kind of letting it out, and it's a good outlet, versus just displacing something and saying, oh yeah, now music's going to be the thing that fills the hole, right? Or, I want to buy a new house because that's going to fill the hole. And I think that's an important part of it too, is not just putting all the negative energy into something else, but finding a way to let it out and say what you need to say.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I know when I was going through some of the bigger ordeals myself, and this is just looking back. Obviously, when you're going through it, you're not really noticing. And I went through, drunken streaks. I went through gambling streaks. I went through anything that I could find as to run away from problems, or to get that adrenaline rush, or to feel validated and all that. And then I'm not saying that I didn't have a good time. I did, but I also look back in retrospect and I see that, well, where did that get me, right? And all it did was actually sink. I created nothing but a bigger hole for myself, and I was swallowing everybody around me. I mean, I never forgot this where, and this is something personal that I'll share. I was going through just a gambling streak. I mean, I used to be at the racetrack every single day. I playing poker, whatever, and I remember my wife, I just met her, and we were living together and all that, and she said, "Hey, did you get groceries?" And I told her that I ended up gambling away that money, right? And the look that she gave me, like, it was like, I don't say it, I mean, shameful is probably it doesn't even compare to that, but it kind of hit me in the balls, and I said, what the fuck am I doing, right? Like, I'm letting the people that I care about down, let alone myself, and some people just don't have those reality checks, but I did that day, man, and I kind of had to step back and reevaluate my shit, and I did, and that day, like, I completely stopped, and I started focusing on other things, but
interesting. Wow, I
yeah.
didn't know
Well,
that, dude.
we're all human, and everybody's got their thing. And, again, I would say the same thing. And people look up to somebody regardless of what unit they served in or anything else. And we're all human,
Yeah.
And I think it's important. One of the things that I was talking about with these guys at dinner that I was referencing earlier is that I never 100% identified myself as just an operator. I was always, am I a good father? Am I a good husband? Am I a good,
Right.
son? Or you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's more to it than just being a one-dimensional person. And, one of the things that I think has helped me, and one of the things that if I was to go back and talk to guys that are going in or getting ready to go in, is you can be an amazing fucking charge into the machine gun nest, badass commando, and then you can have complete destruction in the rest of your life. It doesn't make you a good human. It just makes you a good commando. And, that's something that I hope that people could take away from it, is learn to be well-rounded and a good human being first, not just.
Yeah, I wonder if that speaks to just like better. So something that I'm so interested in, and some mentors that I look up to in different areas talk about self-awareness, and it's like we look at self-awareness. Like, I think there's some times where it's just a basic surface level look at it. Oh, I enjoy being a commando, but we're talking deep self-awareness. You know what I mean? Like what are you really about? Like, and it kind of stems back to core values, and just I feel like you can just peel that onion back, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyson.
One of the things that I've encountered a lot through just looking at different transition programs and some of the ones that focus on soft veterans and stuff, but also just regular transition programs. I mean, the whole notion of why discovery is a really big thing, whether it's to help you find a job or to just reconnect with that sort of like central core of who you are, and the military does a great job at boot camp and OCS and basic training and all those sort of indoctrinating programs to strip away that personal identity, right? And over time you embed yourself in that organization and and those mantras and those culturisms and the things that you do. I mean, you guys were Marines, right? So like as Marines, there are parts of you as Marines that will never go away. You're going to say stuff, you're going to use the jargon, you're going to respond the way that you do to things, which you picked up in the Corps, right? But now that you guys are out, I think, all of us on this podcast right now are still going through that journey of like, oh yeah, there was like this thing that I used to love and I forgot about it. And weirdly, I forgot about it right after I left home to join the military. Yeah. And now I'm out of the military And I remember that that's like one of my favorite songs of all time, or this is one of my favorite books I've ever read. And I didn't read it for 15 years, but now I'm like back and want to read it 10 times, and just those little things and reconnecting with who you are at your core is like the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, I think G described it one time. It might have been actually on our podcast originally, where he was saying that he feels like, he related going in the military as being like pulled back in this rubber band, this slingshot, and it, and then you're just let go into the world, and it's really a matter of like where you end up falling, and I always thought that was interesting. You're so right, and I think that what's funny is like this extremism of like kind of personality shifting, if you will, or like conditioning people to be, about something or whatever. Like as an example, I worked with competitive bodybuilders for years, helping them get ready for shows, and a lot of women, bikini and things like that. And, same exact thing where I noticed like they could start to take it to such a point where it started to define them and become this unhealthy relationship, or this and the tools that they got from it are amazing. I mean, the discipline to eat a certain way or to exercise regularly, those are awesome. But that seemed like that's all that people were talking about. They weren't talking about the potential psychological, lostness that they are with just losing with the deeper meaning of how they could be defined,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, like, especially when you take a bunch of people that are goal oriented, right? And you set these objectives for yourself, and mission takes priority, right? And once mission takes priority, everything else falls away. And we, as I think as humans, are very simply wired to kind of forego anything in a survival situation, right? And yet at the same time, we don't know how to survive when we leave the military and tap back into ourselves. Because, yes. I mean, ultimately, it's like that takes a level of, pride checking that none of us ever wants to deal with. It's like you never want to be like, oh, yeah, no, that I was like a hard, angry, self-centered person as I left the Marine Corps. It's really, right now, it's hard for me to say that. But I recognize that there was like a change that had happened. And as I've gotten out and have made my journey and met Brad and started playing music, dude, those layers are just like peeling away at the rapid, and it's the best thing ever. Honestly, like, sure. My life now today is the best that it's been in recent memory, and a lot of that comes with the shedding of those layers and kind of getting back down to what was always at my core, which was always music, volunteerism, and just, always wanting to work hard to be impactful somewhere, So
I think also you nailed it, Tyson, in something that I'm dealing with right now at the moment. And, again, it's like, I think knowing your faults, or at least being able to own up and admit to your faults. But I swear to Christ, like, you talked to my wife last night and she was telling you what to say, because I had the very thing that you're talking about was a conversation she and I had last night. And it's not until right now that it's kind of clicking. And I think it has to do with like someone's drive and what they kind of get behind. But the gist of it was, you're mission first with music, and I'm suffering because you're 100% focused, and this is your goal, and you're compartmentalizing all of this other stuff between you and I. Mm-hmm. And that's something that it hurt when she said it, because I realized, I was doing wrong. And not in an unhealthy way, but it's very hard for someone that's driven the way that all of us are driven and have been driven in the past, just to turn that drive off. Like, that drive never goes away.
No.
Right. So I've got and I'm glad that I'm with a woman that's so healthy that can, help me see these things because I'm a fucking retard.
Well, Jay, how do you
you know-
how do you quantify? Because I mean, this is something that G and I have had a lot of personal bro talks about things like this because I had that entrepreneurial spirit.
Without the sex.
Yeah, well, maybe a little.
Just to reach around and like dry humping, but it's cool.
Yeah, it's so we both have that entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm also like I do a lot of video and media production, so I have I think we both have this kind of creative-minded, wild-eyed, like kind of just go all in type of personalities, and I watch myself get lost in my businesses and different things that I just am excited about. Because when I'm excited, I'm like people say, it's balls deep, man. That's where you stay. And but the thing is, so this is where my conflict is, and so I just kind of want to pose this to everybody as an open-ended conversation. But there's part of this where yes, you lose the well-roundedness or the well-traveledness, and so other parts of your life can suffer because you're so tunnel visioned into this. But let's also face it. I mean, some of the greatest musicians in the world, the greatest actors, the greatest things that have ever happened were people that probably had to obsess about those, And so, where do you guys find a balance? Is there a balance? Is it okay to be either or? Like, I just kind of want to throw that out in the air.
Well, so for me, in the example that I just gave, one of the things that I talked to her about was that I feel like I've been tapping into these things, this negative emotion, and it's just something that I've got to do. And I realize and recognize that that's causing damage elsewhere. That's not the intent, but I'm at a point where I'm kind of done with that writing piece. I'm done tapping into the things that I need to tap into. Mm-hmm. And now it's a matter of like finishing everything out and completing it so that it's all done and we can release it, Mm-hmm. Probably in 2 years when we get ready to do round 2 and drop another album, I'll probably do the same thing again. Because I think you have to be to some degree, otherwise it's not genuine.
Sure.
And that's kind of the unfortunate thing. And that's also why, military spouses are so fucking strong most of the time is that, they understand that compartmentalization of like, okay, I'm out the door. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and that's what I got to focus on.
I heard a quote from Ryan Reynolds of all people. Of course, he just put out Deadpool 2, but I think they asked his wife, what was it? They asked him if she wasn't okay with the amount of working or hours or whatever you put in. He's like that wouldn't even be a conversation because I'm never going to be with somebody that doesn't support like what my passion is, And I thought that was interesting because I think that what you think is important or what you are passionate about is completely subjective. It's like people that look down on other people for being workaholics, but you have to ask the question. It's like, well, what if that gives them fulfillment, and is that okay? And can they be with other people around them that are supportive of that? So I think that what I'm trying to say is like the gray area of this line. There's some sort of gray line there. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Where do you want balance or do you want?
You got to have balance, man. I mean, I do agree that here's the fault that I see sometimes, man, because we're like the same characters here, right? A lot of times, if I'm focused on what I'm doing, my business, passion, whatever it is, right? And then somebody comes and tells me, hey, you need to like slow the fuck down, and not take it into offense because I feel that person is not supporting me, right? Yeah. And I think we all fall into that category because passion speaks first, and everything is good until somebody says something. And I think what a lot of people make a mistake is that they don't take the step back and say, fuck, like that person, it is supporting me, but I also need to, she's seeing that because we have like this tunnel vision, like you were saying before, that we're just like, eye on the money, bro, and like we're just mission needs to get done. But I think now it's okay to step back and to still accomplish the mission with the same rigor, but also supporting the people that are there with you. Because at this point, the way I see it, if you're gonna be with somebody, if you're gonna have, then you need to have balance. Otherwise, then leave everybody alone. Do your shit. And that's it. Don't drag other people down with it. You know what I mean? Like that's what I've noticed too. So.
Yeah. So I'll add to that. I think when you look at relationships, right, whether it's friendships, romantic, professional, whatever, relationships are all about give and take, right? And you hear people talk about sort of like the swinging, 60, 40, 70, 30 of like marriage and stuff like that. But look, it's guys like us in our time in the service, right, where our unit was everything, deployment was everything, the life we lived was everything, and it was the most important thing. We got really good at taking from everyone around us. I don't know that we realized it, but we got very adept at absorbing the support, absorbing the love, absorbing the commitment, right? And not necessarily being, like cognizant or conscientious enough to say, I've got to push some of that back. I've got to give some of that back to these people. And that's, I'm seeing now, as a civilian, you see it everywhere else, right? I mean, I think it's easy to say that in the military, but to the workaholic reference.
Yeah.
If the guy who loves his job so much that he spends all his time doing his job is with somebody who supports him in that job, that's awesome, right? But that's not balance, just being with somebody who backs you, right? Balance is, I'm going to be on my phone, on Sunday afternoon, taking emails and phone calls, but my wife and my kids, or, my friends that I'm with, or when I'm, if I'm with Brad and Brandon and Jason and we're in band practice, like I'm giving them my time, right? I'm giving them that. I'm not going to take from that. Because that's mutual support, man.
Which is total bullshit, because he sits in the corner on his phone the whole time pouting.
The whole time.
Damn, we know now, man. Shit.
It's all good. Brad loves to try and paint me in a negative light because he knows that I'm like a foot and a half taller than him.
At that moment in the YouTube video, I'm gonna cut and go to those, it's like that group of kids, and they're like, "Oh,
yeah." Dude, you know what I noticed, man? It's like we're all of us here have been talking so great about our wives and girlfriends and mistresses for the last 30 minutes.
Well, it's because it's gonna be public.
Well, it's not even that. So it's just like you feel like we don't have any shredded glass in our dinners tonight or some shit. You know what I mean?
Hey,
No.
I wanted to share this with you guys. This is a quick little story about what you're talking about, because I think this has been an interesting journey, and I'm hoping that everybody, I do want to make this like digestible for all the listeners, is that some of this conversation, I think what's great about it is that there's a lot of people out there that might be struggling with the same thing or being lost, and I mean, a bottle of alcohol, like alcohol is one way to medicate your struggles. Drugs are another way, and those are all kind of sometimes the obvious things. But like, I personally, as an example, actually built an obsession with success and legacy, and and I sacrificed a lot of personal relationships and things early on in my early, and I thought that was normal and it was okay. I'm just an ambitious person, and I'll never forget my biological father passed away, and I was going up to the gym. I was actually getting ready for a bodybuilding show at the time. I'm dieted. I'm exhausted. I just couldn't. So I'm sitting out back at the gym, sitting on this tire, and one of my best friends, Amin, he comes out there and he's, just kind of gets to talking to me, and I go into this deep dive, like emotion, right? And I say, I was mad at my father a little bit because, he had found out he had stage 4 cancer, and 6 months later he'd passed. I mean, it was so sudden. And he was 40, in his mid-40s, and so he's a young guy. And I was mad at him because he always struggled, right? He always financially struggled, never had like things that he talked about maybe wanting one day or whatever. And there was that, I looked at it as this kind of like, you have this small house and your truck was always breaking down and whatever. And I was mad that like he didn't, his life's gone and he didn't put himself out there and do more. And Amin says to me, he says, you know what, man, like, if you were to pass away tomorrow, he was like, I'm going to speak at your funeral. And he's like, I'm not going to, I might say a couple things like, hey, man, he was a great business owner. He built this and that. But, like, I'm going to spend about 90% of the time saying how good a friend he was, that time he picked me up, time he got into deep conversation or whatever. And, it really, like, it kind of blew me back a little bit to where I was like, what am I sacrificing to do this other thing over here, and is it worth it? I need to really inventory myself in a deeper manner. And my dad was that guy, like, where he was like always there for people, whatever personal relationship. I mean, he was a good dude, And it's like, well, it's not about the money and other things, you know. So anyway, I just found that to be an interesting, relevant story there.
I think it's something that, you know, the military, and I've said this about, you know, the unit that I last served in, is that they do such an amazing job recruiting guys and putting them through a selection process that really kind of hones the guy that they're looking for. You know, they end up getting, we're all basically the same. And to some degree, we're all the same in the service, right? Mm-hmm. They do a really horrible job of setting you up for what comes afterwards. Like, how do your strengths that make you good at being able to do X, Y, and Z, how do they hurt your relationships? How do they hurt, you know, other things in your life? And so that you kind of know those things. And it sounds like I'm pushing it off on somebody else. Like, well, the psychologist should have told me, you know, this is what I'm going to deal with. You know, but there's basically none of that. You know, there's very little of that. And I feel like that's something that the service in general could do a better job with. And as guys get out, you know, maybe some counseling to help them understand the things that they're going to face about losing their identity, this thing that they sacrifice years to become, and then it's just gone, or a lack of purpose, or, you know, whatever it might be. And here are the things you're going to encounter based on your personality. And, you know, here's how you need to deal with that. Here are the warning signs, you know.
Yeah, but we're too busy fucking scrubbing sand out of Iraq and wearing glow belts in Afghanistan. I mean, I think the military sometimes, and I hate to say this, but which is driven by politics in general, its priorities are all fucked up. I mean, you know, I did a story this morning, and I don't know if you guys had a chance to read it, which kind of blew me away. So, Medal of Honor recipient Gino Merli, he fought in World War II, and long story short, he was describing an event where when they landed on Omaha Beach, he was looking at these combat engineers that were tasked with clearing minefields from the beach, right? So just picture yourself, you know, under fire, all your guys are dying around you, right? So what was happening is that these engineers were crawling up on this hill and they were trying to mark these mines, right? But the mines would go off and like blow their fucking legs off. And what they would do is they would shoot morphine into themselves just to stay alive. And you know what I mean? And like if they were like barely breathing, they would tell the guy, hey, just keep going forward, right? So when they did that, he got up on top of the hill because he was able to follow these, essentially the bodies of these engineers, right? Which it got to the point where, you guys ever seen those flags they put for like explosives and things like that to mark them?
Yeah.
So they would like put the morphine into their legs and stick those flags into their legs because the sand wouldn't hold. So when he got up on top of the hill, he looked back and he literally saw a trail of bodies that led up the safe way up, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, that has got to be the hardest shit ever. And then I brought into perspective here, and I'm thinking, some jackass sergeant major was going to go up and say, like, why did you tear up your pants to put your fucking flag on there? Or why did you waste morphine? You know what I mean? Like, that's the, you know, and it's so sad that you have to think like that. Even when I was in country, it's like, I would look at some people and I'm like, did you really just ask me to do that? Like, you know, you didn't ask me to rush a house with insurgents. You just asked me to fucking go pick up MRE bags. I'm like, are you serious? You know what I mean? And I think it's just the priorities that's all fucked up. That's why it's no surprise to me that we don't have the right exit strategy for the guys that come out of the military. You know what I mean? So that's just my 2 cents on that. So.
Sure. Well, I think that's, you know, one of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing with the music project is, you know, to try and like accomplish that goal ourselves, since it's not something that's there for you. It's like, how can I help as many people as I can possibly help? Yes. How can I get the word out to as many people as I can possibly get out to?
Dude,
and
Brad just stole it from me, dude. I literally was just thinking that. I was like, holy fuck, we're kind of internally policing.
Brad has got fucking Jedi powers, man. That's what they teach him at wherever he came from, the last, you know, place. That's where they do that over there, dude. It's
No, it's, you know, I've talked with a number of people in the last couple of weeks, and they're like, man, it's badass. You're not talking about it, you're doing it. Like, yes, everybody's just got to do their part. It's like we're all, especially from the NCO level, right?
Sure.
It's like that's what you do. You police up your own and make sure that everybody's
So
driving on and accomplishing the goal.
Tyson, I want to bring you in on this because I think I'm gonna try to sandwich these two concepts together that we've been talking about, and this will be an interesting merge. But so we're talking about kind of like finding a deeper meaning, like perspective, like what's important, what's not, all that stuff. And one thing that you mentioned when you first got on this podcast, you were talking about politics and the way things are, and we don't typically get into a lot of that here, but I do find it exceptionally interesting right now how what you said, it's like two sides of a fence just throwing rocks at each other. Nobody's listening. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that I've said, because I mean, who the fuck knows the answer here, but, I wish that more people I wish there was just more self-policing going on, like internally, like guys like us that are military veterans. I feel like it's our fucking responsibility. If we see something higher or we see how the guys are walking off a cliff, like it's our responsibility to figure out how can we communicate this to our people. Somebody that's not our people, they're not going to listen to us, right? They're on the other side of the fence. So I don't know. I wanted to see if I could spark something with you.
Yeah. So I mean, look, I think about this all the time, right? And I think that everyone, and especially right now, it's like when people get upset with something, and think about like when we were in the military, right? And we were bitching about some policy or something like that. Who did we, really like go after when we were talking shit, behind closed doors, right? It's always about whoever's at the top, right? And not just like at the company level, but maybe it's maybe you're talking shit about the company commander or the first sergeant, or maybe it's the battalion commander or the sergeant major. And maybe at a certain point, you're like, the whole policy here sucks. Like, what am I even doing in this country right now? But we always go to the top, right? And you just want to blame somebody. And ultimately, like, you can blame somebody, but can you affect that? No, right. Not really. Not that way. And one of my good friends, your old platoon commander, he and I had a great conversation. I've got a group text with all my best friends from the Marine Corps. There's a small crew of us, and all just amazing dudes who are all doing incredible things.
Did he tell you about the truth about G in the military, like how much of a shitbag he was?
Yeah, I was, man, completely.
First quote, biggest turd I ever worked with.
That sounds about right.
I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding. He loved you, but no. He said, look, we can get all spun up about all this stuff that's going on, but I live in this small sphere where I have my family, I have my coworkers, I have the things that I do with my kids, and every day I just want to see what I can do to be a positive influence in those areas, in those spaces, and just not worry about what's happening outside of that, and dude, that punched me in the stomach. In a way that really changed my approach to life, honestly, because we get really good at bitching, right? I mean, if you served in the military and didn't bitch, like, I want to see your DD-214.
Sure.
Prove to me that you served, because I don't buy it. But like, if every day, you can just do something, right, that's going to shape whatever's important near you, like that. I think that to me is the response to your question. It's like, how do you merge the two? Well, just look right in front of you and see what's happening here, and don't worry about the things at the next level. And if you want to grow to that level, right? If you want to run for office, if it's political issues, or you don't like the school system, go back to school and learn to become an administrator, right?
Yeah.
And there are methods and vehicles to get to those upper echelons, within the system. But dude, every day you have a chance to make something better for somebody,
I think what's something I've always said, and I feel like I sometimes get backlash on this, but this is something I picked up from Gary Vaynerchuk. But he's like, dude, I'm fucking responsible for everything in my life. He was like, I walk outside, get hit by a car, I'm fucking responsible for it. I shouldn't have walked out that early. And he's like, it's not to say like I caused the car to hit me, but he's like the point is like, if I just like take responsibility and I'm not a victim of my circumstance or whatever happened that day or the next day or whatever, then things typically start to go more positive. I start to take control of my reality. So like, I think it's interesting where like people have this idea that they don't, they don't have control over their own life because, this politician or that person or whatever, and it's my group of people. And it's not to say like that, speaking up about things is a bad thing, but I think we've just turned into a bunch of whiners, man. It's military's one of them. And then there's all kinds of groups that are doing the same thing. It's like, what's funny to me is like everybody doesn't recognize that the other one's bitching. Like if you're in that group, you think that you guys are the only ones not bitching and the other group's bitching. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what the fuck, man? We're all a bunch of pussies.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, that's the short answer. I think, I think, and it goes back to the whole like policing ourselves, right? Like we're good at it, and you just extend that out, and only only within the space where you can actually affect it. And look, if everybody did that, I think you would see rapid change. In a lot of ways, right? In whatever the issue is, it's just I mean, as a Marine and as a MARSOC dude, I mean, the whole gung ho thing, it's all about working together, right? And being on a small team, and Brad can speak to this for sure, but every person carries their load. I mean, we're tribal. I mean, still to this day, human society is broken into hundreds of thousands of tribes, whether it's based on geography, religion, any number of factors. Everyone's got to carry a little weight. And if one person doesn't carry a little weight, the whole system, tilts one way or the other.
Yeah.
And, so that's where I think that accountability comes in, and responsibility. I love Gary Vee. I think he's awesome. I geek out on all his posts and stuff because I think he's like a pretty no bullshit guy.
Yeah.
And, and so I love that. If it happens, it's on me, right? If I made a decision that led to something happening to me, then that's on me. And if it affects somebody else, I've got to own that and take responsibility for that too.
What do you think about the? I thought I might be wrong about this, but something I'd mentioned to somebody else. I was like, I've always thought, or I realized early on that like, if let's say I got excited about something, or I wanted to believe something, it could be a fucking Facebook post, it could be a religious belief, or whatever. My first instinct is to try to disprove myself. And I know that sounds bad, but like it's kind of the scientific method in a sense where I look at it like, well, instead of me just diving balls deep into like this belief system, why don't I try to challenge that or try to see it from a different set of lenses first and then make a reasonable decision on what's going on. And I feel like it's funny, we want to be stuck in our own bubbles. Like you just want to be preached your own religion and like just hang, it's like nobody's well traveled anymore, and then they're mad at the other group because they think that there is nothing else outside of this world,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, think about like when you want to buy, say you want to buy a new car, are you just going to go to the lot and pick the first thing that looks cool to you?
If you're an enlisted guy, yes.
And he's going to get married the next day.
Yeah.
Big truck.
At 30% interest, right?
Yes.
Stripper girlfriend.
Yeah. After signing your power of attorney to the taxi driver. Yeah. Well, outside of that,
oh my God.
It's true. Reports, right? And you do your homework and you test drive things. And so we put all this diligence into the material aspects of our lives, right? And not, wanting to spend our money, very, very flippantly, I guess. But then we're going to be really, really brash and sort of sudden with using our words, which, your word is your bond kind of thing. And throwing yourself out there just because you read one thing one time that maybe it doesn't like you, and you read these like, long Facebook threads, and you're like, oh, like your hands start to sweat because someone's just digging themselves into a hole.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how just stop and consider for a second that like there are 359 other angles to look at this opinion and this perspective. and yeah, I mean, so I think if you just slow down and do that, right? I mean, that's being responsible, and that's being accountable for yourself and your actions and your words and your thoughts and everything else. Is like you gotta vet yourself, I think, because look, the first person who's gonna buy into your bullshit is you every time. So I don't know. That's
I don't want to interrupt, man. I actually want to interject into something. I actually want to ask you guys a question on this, which it's kind of relates to a topic that I've been dealing with for just recently and whatnot. But so guys like you that that have been traveled around the world, who have had a variety of experiences, in and out of the military and whatnot, and obviously shaped you to the persons that you are right now. How do you guys, or and this is, if it's too personal, I mean, you guys let me know, but how do you guys handle fear, right? I'm talking about, you have to go through something, whatever it may be. What tools do you use to actually handle it?
It's a good one, man.
Whew, man. Let's see.
An e-tool.
I've dealt with a lot of that, and that's something that, I wish that I could have, looking back at myself, this many years later, I wish that I could have dealt with things differently at times, or dealt with things better. I tend to, and I'm this way with anything. Like some people, when they have a problem in their life, they clam up. They go into their shell. They don't talk about it, and you wouldn't know other than their mannerisms change. Me, if I've got something going on, I talk. I'm a talker about everything. I'm a social creature, right? I don't like being alone. I don't go to a restaurant by myself and eat dinner if I'm traveling. Like I just don't like that. I want to have a group and everything else. So for me, the fear thing has always been, I guess, more of like I would share my feelings out loud and verbalize them, whereas sometimes that doesn't necessarily look good to the people you're around, but that's just me. That's just something that I do. And ultimately I'll go do the thing. I just may get, dragged kicking and screaming into the thing. But I'm going to go do it, other people, that I've seen, that's the most heroic dudes that I've ever been around. These guys that just, zero fear, or at least a perception of zero fear. We just charge into fire and make shit happen, and seemingly not even think twice about it. But I think I've always struggled with that, and that's not to say that I'm not like a risk taker or jump in head first into anything. I've always done that too. But
do you think that because I think it's interesting, like G, we've talked about anxiety and different things before, and as closely related as you and I are, the one thing that does differ between us is kind of our social habits, a little bit, as I'm a lot like Jay in the sense that like I overshare and just talk. Like I literally was at a gas station the other day, guys, and I was like checking out, and I got to talk to this Indian guy, and he was telling me all about his country and how they get married and they can't have sex, and there was all like, I don't know, I was like, how the fuck did this just happen? This was
yeah. See, sometimes like oversharing with me has been my biggest issue is that I overanalyze a lot of things, and sometimes it's kind of like a a double-edged sword, right? But when it comes to certain things, you're sitting there like fucking doing, assessing the risks, and you kind of like doing this movie shit in your head, and next thing you know, you just either lost the possibility of doing whatever you needed to do, or you're just taking away the actual, I guess, like fun of doing that, right? And one thing when it came to, like, for me, I hate doing shit by myself, like just like you, Jay. Like I like to be around people. For the main reason is because I like to look back and say, hey, dude, you remember this shit when we did this? It's kind of like sharing that memory, right? Or sharing that particular event. Things that I used to always be like, when I got out of the military, I used to be like a complete loner. That my thing was like, hey, fuck everybody else. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to survive. I don't need anything. I have enough internal support and structure that I can deal with anything, right? So when that kind of fell through, I realized, again, balance, right? I maximized that and then crashed and burned. And I was like, now I'm trying to cling. I was trying to cling on to people. And when I overdid that as well, when, I was like, fuck, I need to be more vocal about what I feel and whatnot. And what was happening was I was saying the things that I felt to essentially the wrong people. Because the truth of the matter is there are some people that can handle that and they can give you good advice or can give you a good direction. And some people just don't, and if anything, they'll just confuse you even more. You know what I mean? And I struggle with that a lot until I need to start putting everybody kind of on a pyramid, in regards to like, this is what I could say to this person. There's a time and place to say this, or, there are certain things that I may share with somebody, but I will never share with another person because I don't feel that they're up to that level. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like the way that I've dealt with, and I was just curious how you guys, dealt with it. And so with Tyson, I guess I'm forwarding the same question to you, like how, you being a leader and an officer and, obviously trying not to quote unquote show fear. How do you, put that, I guess, to the side or deal with it and move forward? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think with everything though, it's like you whether you got to give a presentation or lead a project at work or, any of that stuff. I mean, and when I was in, I don't know that it was ever something I necessarily like thought about, and frankly, that was because, and maybe, I don't know, I'm like having an introspective moment because you just asked me like the most, I don't know. Like,
I think
question. It's you caught me off guard with that. I kind of hate you for it. Right?
Well,
no worries, man.
I think that what's interesting is that, like, I think just being around people that maybe can potentially fill a void that you like. I think, like, as an example, like, I think there's some times where, like, I might push you to put yourself in a situation that, like, you were nervous about or something, or just being as a support system, and it's something that I'm naturally just not scared of, and vice versa, and so I'm curious if maybe that's what it is. It's just finding you had said this, like, find the right people. Maybe that's the conversation,
Sure.
I think some of it is like your comfort level of what you're doing in the situation you get put in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't think I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about specifically the police officers that I won't judge or talk shit about any of the guys that, either did or didn't enter a school to go do whatever. Right. Like, that's not my place at all. I would never judge anybody. Mm-hmm. What I will say is that, and this was kind of where our conversation went, was like CQB in itself is like an act of heroism, and just moving from room to room to room at the speed at which you travel and everything else is like, it's like each time you're doing it, and it's not like every house in Iraq doesn't have multiple AK-47s, so you're constantly doing that. So for me, like, that was my comfort zone. I could go do that all day long, not think twice about it, and I never had a moment of hesitation.
Sure.
I a number of times was put in situations where maybe somebody way up the food chain suggested that we do something that maybe wasn't a good idea. And within the experience of the team and the troop and the squadron, we're kind of identifying that this probably isn't a good thing to go do for multiple reasons. Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, we're going to go do it. And that's one of those things where I really struggled with things like that, where maybe I didn't see the goal, or maybe I could think further down the road than this person could. And that was always something that I struggled with, was maybe seeing all of the possibilities that somebody else can't see. Yeah. And so that's why I ended up verbalizing things. So when somebody would say, where I was in that situation, like, oh, hey, we're going to go march into X and do this. Like, hey, you probably want to think about X, Y, and Z because that's out there, Anyway, that's just an example of, like I said, for me, I'll jump off a little bird onto a rooftop and run into a building all day long. No issues with that. and never really, I don't think I ever hesitated once or even thought about that, because that's my comfort. That's the thing I'm meant to go do.
Yeah,
but
I was
when you
actually
alter
telling,
that,
I was actually telling my wife about that. Well, not about jumping out of little birds and, and all of that, but it was more of like we're having a conversation, and it was kind of like it blows my mind how there are certain things that I feel restricted on, and it can be the most simplest things, but there are some things that I have no problem doing, and people are like, "How the fuck can you do that?" You know what I mean? It's just.
Well, it's funny, but I mean, I literally on these podcasts, man. Gia said this before, but it's like we have growth phases and we learn stuff, and it's. I fucking love it. Like I fell in love with this whole process because I see myself realizing things that I don't know. I almost feel stupid in a way. But Jay was talking. He was talking about what he struggles with, his fears, and I was like. Mm-hmm. I'm like, holy fuck. Like I have always referred to myself as kind of fearless, right? That was always a word. Cause I'm the crazy one, right? I'm the one, like I said, I go up, talk to anybody, like just put myself, but my fear is just something that's not quite out as in the open. It's not quite as taboo as most people, you know what I mean? It's like being by myself. I stress this to you. Like I have friends that go to Europe and go backpacking across Europe by themselves. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that?
Right.
Like that scares the fuck out of me, like.
Sure.
So it's weird, man. I actually thank you, Jay. Thank you.
Did you guys hug it out?
Yeah, we should just have a virtual hug,
Yeah, I'm looking
right
at your
now.
picture right now, stroking the face.
I was promised a comfort animal here.
Really?
And, yeah.
We'll make sure to send you one, man, so you don't feel left out. Hey, I got a side question I wanted to ask. This is, I wouldn't say it's off topic. Actually, we kind of mentioned this in our last podcast. We're talking about being well traveled and going out and encouraging people to go out there in the world and explore new things, new sites, new cultures without killing them. And how if 50 years from now, would you guys ever find I wouldn't say closure, but if you had a chance to go back to the places that you fought in, right? And somebody give you the opportunity to do that, to kind of I wouldn't even say reconnect, or maybe, maybe gain personal closure. Is that something that you would do? Like, for example, Jay, would you ever go back to Somalia, for example, right?
Interestingly, I saw a documentary about two guys that went back there.
Yes, I saw that with one of the.
It was Jeff Struker and Kenny Thomas were the two guys.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I seen that.
And it was interesting because as they were driving along, Jeff Struker was my squad leader at the time, and we were in different vehicles, but he was like, "Yeah, we killed a lot of people right here," mm-hmm. and it was interesting because I don't even remember that stretch of road. That there was a period of time where my switch got flipped and I know what I was doing, but I think my mind and brain and subconscious just kind of has locked that away, and it's never really come back. So I don't think I would go, not because of any reason other than I have my memories and they're sacred. Mm-hmm. And I think if I went there, it would start to change those memories in a way that would be almost inaccurate. Because you know what I mean? There are certain things that I'll just never forget, and they're locked in my brain, and it's kind of that's my personal thing.
Sure.
If it was to go back into other places that I've been, kind of similarly, I don't know, it just. That was then, I'm ready to do the next thing and move on to the next thing and
mm-hmm.
and get closure that way, not by hanging out in the past.
What you're getting at, but I just thought about that. This was an interesting way to kind of pose it, but we talked about being well traveled because I think there's a lot of people that kind of are stuck in their bubble, like Tyson, like what we were talking about. It's you're stuck in your world, and so it's kind of good to reach out or touch other things, or go to a different fucking church that whatever, something weird, do something weird,
mm-hmm.
but try anal, whatever, guys. I mean, don't knock it till you try it.
That's right.
Date a chubbier chick, it's fine. So here's the. But it is situational because I'm listening to Brad talk, and I I wouldn't go back either. You know, it's like, and I was thinking about that with Fallujah. I was like, wouldn't have an interest in going back. But I do wonder if there's situations where people are put in certain scenarios, like let's say, I don't know, you were just in an environment where it caused these kind of like racial disconnection or whatever because of the type of people you're around or whatever, and like if you could see those people that you had a disdain for in a different light, in a different way, taking that opportunity to do that, you know, because does that make sense? Like where you can have a bad experience, but like there's a whole different side of it that you could see as well, you know, like Somalia may be completely different than obviously what you experienced.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's one of those things where, you know, I can't say that I've thought about it, like, would I ever go back? Maybe to like surf some of the waves, you know, sure. Yeah. that would be cool, but I don't know. I don't think that any of it would look familiar. I think that there would be very little that would look familiar, and then I think that would start unraveling things, you know, was my memory of this correct? Or, you know, is what I'm seeing different?
The reason why I brought this question up is because was a couple of days ago was actually the 74th anniversary of D-Day, and every year there's like a pilgrimage of, you know, obviously it's becoming less and less, but you know, all these veterans who fought in that battle and were on the beaches, or the paratroopers, whatever, they go out there, and it's like, you know, and it kind of made me reflect a little bit, you know, like how these guys are literally going back to, you know, either, like I said, get closure or to remember everything, and how you were saying that if I were to go back, it would be nothing like it. Like these guys are going back and they're like, yep, I remember this exact spot, and I remember this, and I remember that, and it's kind of like I was always trying to figure out why they would do that, and that's kind of the reason why I brought this question up. Like, would our generation do something, you know, similar?
You're not going to ask me to go back to Iraq with you, are you? Like, I don't want to go film.
No, fuck no, dude. No, I don't even want to fly over that fucking country. But so you know, so that's kind of where I came with it. And Tyson, man, what do you you know, would you ever go back to, you know, all the other places, or what's your take on it?
I think I share the opinions of the group, man. I just never think about it. I think, you know, for me, the places where I was were, I'm always going to have those like memories with my guys, and the good days and the bad. And I'm always going to go back to those places. Now, interestingly, you know, have I found myself like getting on Google Maps and going like to the spot, like zooming in from the globe, and I can just generally put my cursor and zoom in and see like how close I can get to a spot where I remember, you know, a firefight or an IED or a target building or something like that. Like, yeah, I've done that a few times.
Sure.
But that's like, to me, that's like going through old photos, right? I think to need to go back there, I don't know. It's just like that.
No, it's different. It's different, you know, fucking G's mom and then jerking off to pictures of G's mom.
Yeah.
Different things.
Yeah, it's over, right? Been there, done it.
Once it's done, it's done, man. Move on.
You know, honestly, I don't know if she listens to this podcast. It does make me nervous. I haven't met this lady. I'm sorry.
You know what's funny, dude? I guarantee you, bro.
G, sorry.
Hey, it's gonna be the same thing. You gotta meet my mom, dude, and you gotta be like, it's nothing like I remembered, bro. Watch.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, she was easily 65 pounds lighter. I saw a picture recently from a buddy of mine who was over in Mogadishu, and he actually recovered one of the miniguns. It was the minigun off of Super 6.4 that was shot down.
Oh, shit. Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
And apparently there was someone that knew where this thing was, and they literally drove to the guy's house and said, "Hey, we heard you've got X, Y, and Z." And the dude said, "Yep." Open up a box, and there it was.
Holy fuck! What?
Yeah, pretty fucking
nuts,
amazing,
man. Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool. So anyway, while he was there, he took some pictures in other places. One of them was the stadium, where I think about 9:30 or 10 the next morning, we kind of like gathered in, and that's where like, all right, all the wounded guys got stacked up over here, and all the KIAs got stacked over there, and brought in some helicopters and flew dudes out and stuff like that. But the picture of the stadium, and this is kind of what brings me and why I would say the answer that I said, the stadium looked nothing like what I remember it looking like. And part of that's age, part of that's, however many years it's been since then, and the degradation, and just because that place is such a fucking shithole, the upkeep and everything else isn't the same. So I just, again, it's kind of like, looking at pictures of your ex-girlfriend or whatever it might be. It's like, I don't know. I was there. I did it.
Wow.
I don't need to revisit it.
It's funny. Actually, I'm going through a breakup right now, and like we're kind of in that like out of sight, out of mind phase, where it's like you gotta push it away enough, because it's like you find yourself getting roped in this loop of emotion,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. That's a super tough thing.
I'm still keeping pictures though, but
my ex.
Feel free to send pictures to the rest of us here.
Yeah. So hey, just on a lighter note, did you guys happen to see the big check we did? We had an Oprah moment this week.
Yeah.
We gave a huge one of those like obnoxious GoFundMe checks, like the giant Oprah checks or a Happy Gilmore check. Yeah.
Oh, that's rad, man. What was it? What was it for?
Yeah, so long story short, man, I went to the VA a couple weeks ago, and it was like the one appointment that I decided to fucking go to. I hate, I how the VA is, so we don't even get into that. But so I went there, and I was with a buddy of mine, and as I was coming out of the building, I noticed this gentleman who was a World War II veteran, and he was, on his walker, and so obviously I approached him. I thanked him for his service, and it was like 3 PM, man, hot as balls. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, is anybody picking you up? And he's like, no, I actually drove. And I was like, well, where's your car? And he's like, it's all the way the fuck out there and like halfway across the parking lot. And I said, well, because he's looking, he's like, usually they have like golf cars that kind of come pick you up and bring you there. So I asked the man, I said, well, listen, would you mind if I walk with you, at least to make sure you get to...
First you said...
That's right.
He's like, give me your keys, I'll go drive your car. He was like, no.
I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, well, I can bring your car around. And he's just like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But then I asked, I was like, can I at least walk you to your car? And he said, yeah, no problem. So while we were walking, we kind of got to know each other. And, she shared a little bit about his story and childhood and the military and whatnot. And then, he kind of asked me, he said, how's the VA treating you guys? And I said, I can't complain. And he's like, well, I can't say the same. And I was like, well, why is that? Well, we'll kind of find out. He drove all the way down there, almost like an hour. And this guy's pushing 91, right? He drove over an hour to go to the fucking VA to settle for, he had a medical procedure a couple years back and from a different hospital. And Medicare paid for the majority of it, and he was trying to get the VA to pay for the remainder of it. And the VA, since you know how it is, man, red tapes, it takes forever to do shit. The bills were just piling up, man. And and he came down here to talk to the VA to see if they were gonna take care of him. And so I asked him, I was like, well, how much are you needing? And he said, it's roughly about $4,000. And believe me when I tell you guys, if I had a checkbook, I would have cut him a check right then and there, believe me. And I asked him, I said, well, I kind of threw it out there. I was like, if you would like me to help, I mean, I can, I'm sure I can help you out in one way, shape, or form. And he said, no. I let the VA do its thing, and then I'm good with that. But in the middle of the conversation, I was able to get his name, his phone number, and he kind of told me a little about him. So literally, not even 10 minutes into it, I got into the car and I said, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna start a GoFundMe for this guy to raise $4,000. I was like, that should be pretty easy, right? And I was trying to use social media as more than just running a business. I figured this is the real, one of the main reasons why I have ZF and I do what I do, right? So I created a GoFundMe and I kind of told the story, and he had no idea none of this shit was happening. So I said, hey guys, we got to help this guy out. And
he's 91. He wasn't really big on Instagram.
Yes.
Or he only follows booty models.
Yeah. So I put in the description. I said, hey, I would like for everybody to help out, and because I want to lead by example, I'm gonna fork up the first $1,000 up front, and I did. And within like 12 hours, it grew up to like $10,000, dude. Like, it was just nuts, right? And I said, I'm only going to run it for 7 days, and then we're going to give this guy a check. So at the end of the day, we racked up almost $16,000. And so my next question was, how the hell do we give this to him? And, I reached out to his daughter. I tracked her down.
Wait, tell him about Fox News calling. You were like, why the fuck did you get my number?
So then Fox News calls me, and my first thing was like, how the fuck did y'all get my number?
People would be all excited. He's like fucking old man G over here.
Yeah, dude. But anyway, so they did a story on that, which I thought it was kind of cool. And but anyways, so we met up at the Starbucks that he usually go to, and I was trying to tell him go somewhere else, but I guess he likes Starbucks. And we handed him a check, man, and he was just blown away. And my thing was, his daughter was like, "Hey, I think you built up enough good karma for the rest of your life." And I said, "Listen, to me it was just a spontaneous moment. I don't seek any recognition. To me, it was more like this guy needed help, and I wanted to do something about it, and that's kind of what happened, So I always encourage people to do good, man. Whenever you get a chance, do good, because you never know, you might be in that place, and it's just it's just funny how things end up. So, but it was interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You should be proud of that. And I know we're all in the don't want recognition or anything else, but you also need to be proud of the things that you can do,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I figured my main satisfaction was that I looked back throughout the day and I said, you know what, G, you did right, bro. And
I can speak from somebody that knows G very personally and knows a lot about him that will not correct karma. You're going to get about 3 more of those. And
then we're good. Yeah, you got like checklist, man. But
yeah, actually, it's funny, guys. We were overshare a little bit. Starbucks, sorry. It worked out fine, but like we're at the Starbucks, and Starbucks has been in the news and shit, with different drama and stuff lately, and I get it, right? Like the world is so weird, like with that, everything's PR. It's like you're just somebody's ready to expose you or something like every 2 seconds, and that it's just fucked up that that's the way it is. But so we're out there, and we've got this DSLR camera on like a gimbal, and I mean it's not like a huge rig or something, but it looks like a professional camera, and so we're waiting to like go surprise this guy with this check, this freaking American hero with $15,000, and the guy comes out, he's like, "Hey, we don't do media here, or whatever." And I'm sitting here thinking, "Now's not now, dude. Trust me, you don't want to be in the news for this one, man. Like, just let it happen."
Yeah.
Can you not put our logos in there? I'm like, you're gonna want your logo in there.
For real, dude.
Let it go.
But in any case, man.
That's awesome stuff, though.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Well, I think we go ahead and wrap this up, man. So, first off, again, guys, thank you so much for being on here again. As always, we had a blast. I know everybody's going to listen to this. They're going to enjoy it. Also, definitely appreciate, you guys kind of giving us your deep insights on this. I think it's going to it's just very interesting, man. I know sometimes it's not easy to talk about certain things, and we appreciate it.
Could I just get you guys real quick to just a couple sentences, man. But so one of the biggest feedbacks that we got from our original, and I feel like it'd be really cool for you guys to address the audience. But we had so many comments of people that, including one of my best friends, Alex, who also is G's trainer currently. But how, again, you guys going through what you've gone through and talking the way you did really reinvigorated this. This mindset of what a veteran can be. Like, I think that you showed a different side of it. And so if you just have anything that you want to say to them, because I mean there's so many people that gave y'all just so many positive props that here's an opportunity just to speak to them.
Yeah, I just I'm super passionate about helping people that are struggling, and what I would say to anybody listening is you have the power to, no matter how dark it is, no matter how bad you feel, talk to somebody, get help. You're worth it. And, reach out to me personally on Instagram if that's something that you need or whatever it might be. But everybody here can do it. If I can do it, everybody listening can do it. And I feel very strongly about that. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to say, look, I've struggled, I've dealt with dark stuff, and if I can do it, you can do it too. So.
Yeah, and I would just say that I saw a sign once that said, the world is changed by your example and not by your opinion. And I think I don't know. I think just back to what we talked about, and it's cool to hear that what we're doing, is inspiring people and reinvigorating people and giving them a spark. And I would just challenge them to take it a step further, and take a look immediately around them and look at the 5-meter target and say, well, what am I doing that might be inspiring somebody around me, and where might I make a change? And I think that they will see that it will continue to grow, I'm happy to hear that, honestly. It's very cool because, I think back to the conversations Brad and I had in the very beginning, right? Instagram direct message conversations that were paragraphs and paragraphs long, where we set out, straight up, like, whatever happens with this, if it makes one person's life better because of some thing they took away from hearing us talk or hearing us play, then this whole endeavor was totally worth it. So, and I think that goes for anybody. So
everything else is gravy.
Gee, did you catch that, man? Like, do you remember you and Josh having a conversation about starting this podcast? And you remember, I don't know which one of us said it. We were like, we just need like one listener, man. Just one person to give a shit, man, and that's it.
Yeah, no,
that's so funny.
No,
you said that.
It's right on, man. That's all it takes is one person, man. So, well, I mean, I think we're good, guys. So, hey, for everybody that's listening, make sure you go check out Silence and Light. That's the band that these awesome guys are part of. We're waiting for the album to drop, man. It's gonna be a fucking hit, and we just can't thank you enough for what you guys are doing, man.
Oh, well, thanks for everything you're doing and what you provide, which is an awesome outlet for anybody in the veteran community to plug into. So, I would say, not to carry on any further about it, but anybody that's out there listening, you reach out to that guy, reach out to that former teammate, see how he's doing, check in on him. We're all brothers, we're all linked, so, and we're all human.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to all the prostitutes, man, and see how they're doing.
You know John Stryker is.
See if you can get the keys to your jacked up F-250 back.
Yeah. Hey, that kid ain't mine, right? Okay, good. All right, good.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. We're going to have links down below so you guys can check those out depending on where you're absorbing this podcast at. But be sure to subscribe, follow, whatever that looks like. And again, thanks, guys. We will hopefully get you guys back on here soon. And we are still chasing down, if he's listening to this, we're chasing down Jason, part of the band, because we need to get it.
Bandmate Jason Everman couldn't join us today. He's out and about doing other things, and would love to get him on next time. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
We might just roll up on him on like an unmarked van.
Yeah, good.
We might get shot.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes for you.
Yeah, we just might get shot. So
yeah.
All right,
guys. Y'all have a good one.